Yeah, great.
How you doing?
Great.
Right on. You ready?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, well, let's just jump into this. I saw on your website, that's www.marijuana.org,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that you were growing lots of marijuana.
Well, of course, it's just the beginning of the season, but we are about to put in over 1,000 plants
Wow.
into our garden up in Lake County.
Wow, 1,000 plants, and you not only doing that, you're putting up the photos on the internet?
Oh, yeah, well, it's no secret what we're doing. As a matter of fact, I send out press releases to the police so they know what's going on. What we're doing there is legal, totally legal, federally and state now. Cultivating marijuana was passed in Prop 215 in 1996. For 4 years, we've been cultivating marijuana legally in California.
Oh, you said fed and state? Aren't
Yes,
the feds against what you're doing?
just went down. For those of you who remember, my club was closed down in 1998 by the federal and the state government. The state government got there first. They got there on Monday, and the feds got there on Friday. But legally, I was closed down on 1998, in August 1998, by the federal government. Then we appealed that decision about closing our club, stating that we had the medical emergency for certain people who had no choice but to smoke marijuana, reinforced by that recent report, the IOM report that was commissioned by McCaffrey,
Right.
that said certain people have to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And it went up to the Court of Appeals, and they decided that the judge had erred in closing our clubs and ordered it remanded back to the judge. Well, the federal government appealed that order to the full member, 27-member panel judges. They came back with the same order, remanded to the regular judge, the original judge, and ordered the clubs open.
Right on.
So right now we are in kind of a legal limbo, where the clubs are going to be ordered open, but haven't been yet. But that order from the Court of Appeals is still in effect. So effectively what we're doing now is legally cultivating and legally selling marijuana on a federal level. We are not selling marijuana on a state level. We're not selling marijuana, period, because we're a co-op.
Right.
But we are allowed to, on a federal law, to possess and sell and cultivate marijuana.
Amazing. And you have some patients there growing with you?
Oh, yeah. We have 200 patients. They're helping us grow what they can do, everyone according to what they can do.
Right.
And, marijuana is like one of those plants. It kind of grows. It's like corn. You put it in the ground, you water it, and it grows. You don't have to do a lot.
I saw some of the photos you had of last year's crop. They're amazing.
Yeah, we produced over 300 pounds last year, but this year we're going to have 3,000 pounds.
You're growing by an exponential rate, then, I suppose.
Yes, we are. We notice a change in the law if you're not going to actually do it.
Right. Well, how much marijuana can you grow on that piece of land? Or, like, what's your limit?
Well, we have, we only have 20 acres, and a lot of it is like kind of straight up and down land, California.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then a lot of it is a lake, but we have over 2 acres growing. And 2 acres will produce 3,000 pounds. You can just times that. I mean, as many you need. We probably need a big chunk of the Central Valley here in California.
Well, what percentage of, say, people who are using medicinal marijuana in your state are you looking after, and how many more farms do you think are going to be necessary before everyone's taken care of? Well,
I'm just taking a small pilot program to start going what I believe will be the future cooperative farming of marijuana.
Right on.
I believe that we need miles of marijuana, not acres. We're talking about miles, and to satisfy the people of California. And I'm one of those guys that take a lot of hits for it, but I really do believe it that all use of marijuana has a medical component to it, and it may not show up on an X-ray, and it may not even show up in a doctor's office, but it is for real anyway. Broken hearts don't show up on an X-ray, and depression doesn't show up on an X-ray, and may not even show up in a doctor's visit, but it is real.
Yeah, I take a few hits there, too. I say that if you can get Valium, Ritalin, or Prozac for it, then, and it's a condition like stress, depression, or fatigue, then you should be able to have legitimate use of marijuana for those purposes. And most people just mistake that for being recreation, I think.
I know. Well, they made up this word, recreational marijuana. We never heard of it until they made it up.
Yeah, no doubt.
And we're not even sure. We kind of bought into it, but we're not even sure what we're doing. We're not sure what this recreating is.
Isn't it one of the two R's is you get prescribed R&R in the military? You were in the military.
Yes, I was in the military.
Did you ever get prescribed R&R?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I went to Thailand from Vietnam and also Australia on R&R. So.
What were those R's? Relaxation? Rest and recreation?
Yeah.
Well, if they can prescribe that, how come they can't prescribe pot for just kicking back?
Well, they want to leave out the rest because they want to make it sound like we're just having a good time.
Right. Are there any doctors that currently prescribe for stress or depression in the United States?
That is actually the main reason now.
Really?
That people are getting marijuana, and the psychiatrists are involved, and understandably so. We have an antidepressant that works.
So are you expecting that within a few years everyone's going to be walking around with either a prescription or a statement of condition for stress and depression, and everyone who uses marijuana will at least have an excuse note, as it were?
Well, I think that may happen, but also what may happen is the courts may rule, hey, you don't really need a psychiatrist to tell you you're depressed. And, it's like taking an aspirin. You don't need a doctor to tell you have a headache.
Wow, do you know which lawyers are currently involved on the cutting edge?
Oh, well, there's plenty of them. It's going to be decided in the courts. And,
right.
Prop 215 was very vaguely and loosely worded. And they are forced, the courts are forced to go to the side of the proponents of what we believe it means.
Right.
And they use the opponents' arguments also. They carry weight.
Right.
But our opponents, they out and out said this is legalization of marijuana. This is veiled legalization. And so they have taken that into account also.
Right.
And so in the end, when the big courts rule, they will rule all use is medical. It has a medical component to it, whether it's antidepressants, stress, anorexia, et cetera, and that Prop 215, in fact, did what the opponent said, it legalized marijuana.
Yeah.
So I believe that will happen in the end, and I believe, what will happen also is people will get a lot of notes, and there'll be so many people, and they'll just figure it out, and they'll say, oh, geez, everyone's using it for medicine. We can't do nothing anymore.
I hope that day comes real soon.
That scenario will be coming. I just know I feel it.
I think it's inevitable too. I wanted to ask you also about what you noticed. Yeah, for our listeners who don't know, you had a 12,000 member club at one point in time. Is that right? Yes,
it did grow up to 12,000,
and you had like a 4-story marijuana cafe bar.
Yes, I had a cafe bar, and the only ticket to admission was a letter of diagnosis from your doctor saying that you had an ailment that marijuana worked for.
Now, I wanted to go into this a bit because I figure there's a medicinal aspect of getting together on a social level like that and getting relaxed, hungry, and happy with a bunch of friends who you just met. It seems to me that there's something that the clubs can offer people medicinally that your pharmacist just can't.
Well, the social atmosphere, I kind of insisted on that part. That was me, because a lot of people, especially people with AIDS and cancer, are very isolated people.
Yeah.
That they go through a lot of stress in their everyday life just to get out of bed. And you get very isolated and very alone, especially with AIDS. People abandon you and people reject you. We've had families rejected their sons.
Right.
And it's a very lonely thing. And the club offered people a place to relax and unwind and be with people that are also in the same situation as they. And we had young kids in there that had leukemia. We had 2 young kids that both had leukemia. They met in the club. They went through their chemotherapy together. They formed a bond, and they weren't alone. And that was the most important aspect of the club for me, because anybody could get marijuana. Let's get real. I was not the only person in the world selling marijuana.
No.
But what I was doing is I was selling a friendship and camaraderie, and I wasn't trying to make money on the marijuana, but I kept it all going, of course.
Yeah.
And then I added programs, and I added things that would improve people's quality of life, and that's really what I was up to.
Yeah, you can't, loneliness don't show up on an x-ray.
No, that doesn't show up either, but it eats away your immune system, and you'll die faster.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to break for a second here. We're